AIs will replace pentesters, or will they not? Welcome to Threat Talks. My name is Lieuwe Jan Koning, and here from the Security Operations Center, we present you the deep dive of today, and that is about AI and, red teaming. Let's get on to it.
Welcome to Threat Talks. Let's delve deep into the dynamic world of cybersecurity.
Let me start by introducing our main guest of today. Her name is Melanie Rieback, and she is the CEO and co-founder of Radically Open Security. And we're really thrilled to have her here. She has been in the business for 25 years. Can you imagine that? That's a long time, so she must have seen a lot. We're going to ask her all about that, of course. And now, her current company is actually, what they do with their profits, they made a donation of $1 million to NLNet, for example. So this is a special company. Let's hear all about it. Melanie, welcome. What's the name Radically about?
Well, activism.
Activism.
Yes.
I'm going to get back to that. But first, let me introduce our other guest of the day. It's Luca Cipriano. He is red teamer, threat intel specialist. What hacking is his life. When the lights are out, then you'd better shut off your computer. That's more or less it.
I'm not a bad guy. Come on.
I didn't say that. Yeah. I think I'm really happy you're here, Luca. Welcome.
Thanks.
So Melanie, activism. Tell us all about this. This is a special kind of company that not many people are used to, maybe.
Yeah, so Radically Open Security, we were really specifically started to be a social enterprise. So in other words, really just starting ourselves for positive impact. We did this in part through the governance structure of our company. We employ a tool that's known as steward ownership. So we're basically 100% owned by a foundation, which makes us a quote-unquote not-for-profit company. And that's something that's a bit different. But the other things that we do, we indeed donate 90% of our profits to charity, which is basically at the moment the NLNet Foundation, who then uses that money to support open source digital rights projects and anything for an open internet. And also the final aspect of what we do that I think is a little bit activistic is we work on a not-for-profit basis at cost price for nonprofits, NGOs, and civil society organizations. Just because sometimes these civil society organizations, it could be Oxfam or Greenpeace, it could be tiny free speech organizations, where they fled Iran and they want to tell the truth about how things are back at home. And they have literally the world's scariest attacker model, and they have almost no budget. So there's actually very few places that these kinds of organizations can turn. So in that sense, I mean, we find it very meaningful to do this kind of work also for NGOs and civil society organizations. And we also work extremely heavily also with open source. And we also release very much of pretty much all of what we do.
That's wonderful. How do these organizations find you? Do they know of your existence?
They do now.
They do now.
Yeah, we're 10 years old, and I think we have quite a unique reputation on the market for being extremely civil society friendly. It does mean sometimes we have to choose sides. I mean, we can't really work with law enforcement or with intelligence agencies or these kinds of organizations because that's part of their threat model. But, at the same time, though, they, some of these NGOs, I mean, very desperately need good OPSEC and, anyone who can really come in and help them. Also, sometimes they have breaches. Sometimes they might have malware infections that need analysis, and we can help with remediation. So
you don't focus only on offensive. You also do incident response for them, this kind of things.
Yes. I would say that probably 85% of what we do is pen testing. The last 15% is probably indeed a mix of incident response, but also trainings, workshops, just like random. We've done occasional R&D things, although that's not what we specialize in.
You're like the white hat hacktivist, basically.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
Except we're a professional outfit because, I mean, we also work for big corporates. I mean, we also have done work for Google. I mean, we're very selective in what we'll do for them, mind you. We've only worked on some of their open source stuff, but we've also worked for the European Commission. We pen tested COVID apps during the pandemic for multiple nation states, including the Corona Melder in the Netherlands, but also in Poland and Italy. And, we also tested the DCC, which was basically the European standard for the barcode, if you remember those horrible apps.
Yeah.
I asked them to do an ethics audit on that one, and they told me to mind my own business. But anyway, but the point is that, and we also work with critical infrastructure, so with multiple power companies, but also just banks, insurance companies, telcos, hosting providers, core internet and NRENs, but also SMEs, IT companies, startups.
So the stuff you're doing, it doesn't really matter which organizations it's for. It's just that you have the warm place in your heart for those organizations that you just mentioned, like the NGOs and all that, and they need it. And of course, since there's shortages on everything, especially in cyber, prices go up, and for them you can actually be nicer than. So one more question about this business model. You said you're owned by a foundation. Is that? Do you have like examples in organizations in the world to do the same, for example, that you modeled after? Can you speak a little bit to that? That you got inspired by, for example?
Yeah. So basically, when I first started the company, I was completely ignorant about business. So those role models were out there, but I had never heard of them just because I really didn't have a business background at all. The one thing that had inspired me was we also used this really weird fiscal construction from the Dutch church called a fiscal fundraising institution, a fiscaal fondswerveninstelling.
Never heard of it.
And what it is it's basically a tax construction that's typically employed by the church who wants to do a commercial spin-off of some kind. They, raise some money somehow by products and services, and then that money goes with the tax benefit back to the church. Mm-hmm. Now, the interesting part of this is that it forces the company to donate 90% of its profits to charity. So as soon as I heard about this, between that and the foundation ownership, I just thought, oh my God, I can make a not-for-profit company. And that whole idea just gripped me, and it would not let me go. And I just knew if I do not do this, I'm going to regret this my whole life. So
are there parallels with the open source community, the CNCF, for example?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I come very strongly from the open source community. I mean, even in the days back when I was still an academic at the university, I was also on the board of the Netherlands Unix user group. And I've really been super engaged in both creating as well as using open source for a very long time. I mean, basically my whole career. So.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about how you became to do what you're doing right now, because that's only the recent 10 years. That's 15 years before that. You already mentioned academia. What's how is your passion about open source? Should everything, for example, be open source ideally, or is there a role even for closed source? What's your opinion on this?
Well, I'm a little bit dogmatic on this one, but I'm definitely a fan of open source, and I do think we should really put so much as possible really into the commons. I mean, for everybody. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's very helpful, particularly in cybersecurity, to really create tools that we then keep secret. Just because I don't think we can afford to stratify ourselves and form silos when the bad guys are basically so great at cooperating. So in that sense, I feel like proprietary software is counterproductive. That being said, there's obviously some things you need to keep secret. I mean, but I think it's what applies generally is Kerckhoffs's principle. In other words, there's a very small number of things that you need to keep secret. You need to make sure that amount of stuff you need to keep secret is as small as possible. And then actually everything else, as much as possible, should be open, right? Mm-hmm. And just keeping in mind that actually the fewer secrets you have, also actually the smaller is your attack surface. And most people don't think about it that way. But but really, I think that's the benefit of openness and transparency. If you have open source IP, then no one else can steal it.
But throughout your career, the role of open source in the world has increased in an amazing pace, right? I mean, there's no product that exists without at least one open source component in it. For our company, for example, every container that runs is all based on all kinds of open source. The databases are especially the commodity is open source. That was different at least when I went to school.
Well, I think forever, pretty much. I mean, the server side, has been owned by open source, at least as long as I can remember. Maybe not in the very, very early days, but that was a very long time ago. Yeah, I mean, what we have on the client side is basically skins on top of open source. I mean, languages and frameworks are also, for the most part, open source. Um, yeah, I mean, the problem though that I see is just that a lot of open source these days goes freemium,
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes under investor pressure, and I think that is really a problem because if you also consider, I've been in security for a long time, and if you think about some of the really like old school hacking tools, like Nessus, for example, it started out being completely 100% open source and free.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with Metasploit. Remember, I mean, Snort used to be completely free, but the problem is just sort of gradually, they start migrating in the direction of enterprise licenses. And before you know it, nobody can afford it anymore. And it's not just older examples like that. You're seeing it happen now with SemGrab, and this discussion keeps coming up. And this leads to a number of problems. I mean, it really leads to problems with business continuity, but it also can lead to problems with security because at a certain point, if the community branch stops being maintained, for the benefit of the commercial branch.
So let me see if I get what you're saying. So there is an open source tool or a startup that has a security tool that's say indeed it's Nessus or it's actually true for multiple things like AMS-IX. Right? There's also a commercial version of that. And then as soon as it gets bigger or profitability becomes more important, then you're saying that the freemium model, by that you mean there is also going to be a paid tier, and probably the most most inventions are going to be in there,
Yes.
and therefore the relative value of that open source project is lesser, even to the extent that it's going to be abandoned or at least poorly maintained. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes. And it's not just that the newer innovations go into the enterprise branch, but it's that they start deactivating. I mean, usually things like single sign-on are the first to kind of disappear behind that enterprise paywall. So they actively start stripping out the community version.
Yeah, that's the personal frustration of mine as well. Indeed, as soon as there's one thing that everybody there should be a law for single sign-on, right, or multi-factor, and then it's all behind the paywall.
Not to mention with licensing servers. I mean, literally, it's like no offense, but like you're installing a backdoor now into your infra.
That's different. I mean, even our printers want to send their status of their toners to the vendor, and we have zero trust network here.
Yeah, I mean,
you really have to have a good reason to open stuff. So it's closed, and now once a year we have to email them the counters. Yeah,
it's really annoying, And I mean, even we've had some conversations where one of my hackers was like, "Do you want us to monkey patch out the licensing server?" And we were just like, "No, that's not very polite." So
you're probably violating
You're
some
on a thin line there.
Well, we're supposed to be an ethical security company,
exactly.
So.
So you mentioned what you're doing. You're doing a lot of red teaming, like 85%, I believe you said, is that you help customers find flaws in their software, maybe in their infrastructure and all that. Is there an emphasis that you, because red teaming is such a broad field, right? Well, you do have 50 people or so employed,
yes.
so that also means that you can do a lot of different things.
Yes.
Do you do all of it, or is there a sweet spot that you're after?
Yeah. I think we have quite a broad range of skills within the company, indeed, because we have 50 people. I think, of course, the vast majority of what we do is web, just because that's also the majority of the demand of the market, and also almost every hacker does that. But we also have some folks who specialize in mobile, in hardware, in embedded, in crypto, in blockchain. So, yeah, I mean...
You do OT networks as well, like critical infrastructure, this kind of thing?
Yeah, we have. Yeah, for the energy companies that we've worked for, we've tested everything from web pages to power transformers. So
Oh, that's cool. That's really interesting, actually. Yeah.
And now, what I really want to pick your brain on is the role of this human factor in this whole item. I mean, I talked to Luca a lot, of course, about the importance of this, and everywhere there's the AI-based tools. Of course, there's a whole market push behind that, and in a way, and it is appealing, probably. For example, it is the same everywhere. Therefore, and maybe that's also the weakness. I'm really interested in your opinion on that, because an AI we can scale it actually, and a human you cannot scale, for example. But maybe can you speak to what is the difficulty of the craft? What's the thing that requires an actual mind that's educated and has experience and all? What is that?
Right. So I think that you can kind of compare hacking to an artisan craft, right? I mean, it's the same thing as perhaps creating a painting, a unique one, or a statue, or just, you can always sort of tell the difference, I think, between artisanal products versus things that have been, I don't know, 3D printed or mass produced. That's not to say that these mass produced kinds of things don't have value. They most certainly do. But the problem is just that there's a certain, again, level of craft that they can't reach. And I mean, AI, first, I mean, just to be clear, is amazing. I mean, if you spend any amount of time at all playing with LLMs, I mean, really, particularly what they can do with text nowadays, but also just with so many other things. I mean, it's really fascinating to see.
You mentioned an artist. I mean, but if I ask any of them, get me a picture in the style of Van Gogh, and I want a plane in it, right? That Van Gogh couldn't have never really painted that, probably. Well, it does to me, and I'm not an art expert, but to me this really looks like a Van Gogh. It's
Sure.
very good at imitating.
Yes, that's true, and it's really wonderful at reproducing what's already out there.
Yeah, I think that's what you mentioned. That's really good at imitating. But we're talking like about when you talk about craftsmanship, it comes from the person. Like when did any of the AI invented something that just
but do you have to then? Is hacking or red teaming, is that constant inventions?
It
depends.
In my opinion, what is good AI? It's like it's not good at having the context of what it's doing. You need to basically give strict guidelines, and what we have as humans, we can follow our gut feelings. We're good at chaining vulnerabilities that AI can't think about it, like or yet, at least in my opinion. I mean, the way I see artificial intelligence is like an extension of your brains. Like if you in the future we could put chips now, but now we don't have the chips, and if you like need to do something that for you will take like 1 hour, maybe you can do it in 10 minutes with the use of AI, but you guide AI in a direction. It's not like I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that it's good at usually at finding something out of the context or understanding like how some things can be changed or thinking out of the box. It does not have that, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think you can consider LLMs to be very similar to scanning tools. They most certainly have their purpose. They can accelerate the work that you're doing, but they indeed need to be steered.
Okay, for those in the audience to whom a pen test is a pen test, which is find a problem, right? So you say scanning tools.
Yes.
And there's the actual, the more, so what is a scanning tool, first of all? What does it do? What does it get you? If I run a scanning tool?
Well, there's so many different kinds, of course.
But just one example or two.
Well, sure. I mean, everything from, gosh, I don't know, just some of the plugins in Burp Suite, to SQL Map to, I mean, there's hundreds, if not thousands of them.
Nessus scanner or like I don't know.
Yeah, so they will tell you on a certain infrastructure what are the obvious vulnerabilities, what kind of devices are there, those kind of things. But that's more like a tool that you, as a red teamer, deploy to understand the landscape.
Right, and there's a number of known things and low hanging fruit that those tools are very well able to pick out. But the problem starts when you want to move past that low hanging fruit. That's really when you need human creativity. I mean, just quite frankly, AI isn't at that level yet. I'm going to say very consciously yet, because I mean, look, if you look at the research also that Google Project Zero is doing with fuzzing, it's starting to get some really impressive results. But it requires, of course, computational power that is not just prohibitive in terms of expense, but also just in terms of chips available, the amount of power that it's consuming. It's not to say that there won't be more innovations. If you see right now what's coming out of China with DeepSeek and whatnot, I mean, really, it's very amazing. I mean, I can't tell you whether or not we're eventually going to reach this AGI, but what I can say though
AGI
is
artificial general intelligence, where it's actually where they pass the Turing test.
Well, I think in many cases it's already passed.
They already passed it.
It's already passing the Turing test.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Indeed.
So, so that's the thing. I mean, it is so much better, orders of magnitude better than it used to be. I wouldn't be, I don't want to be the Luddite that says that it won't continue getting better. I'm pretty sure it will.
I think we will get there. I'm pretty sure, but it will take a while still. So.
Yeah. But
that seems to plateau a little bit. So there's AI, there's statistical analysis, and then there's ML and deep learning and whatever marketing terms have through.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it just comes down to the same neural networks that we were using back in the 1980s, but it's just that, there's so much more training data now, and the computational speeds have gotten so much faster. But I think the actual basis is the same, because, I mean, it's basically modeled after how human brains work. Yeah. And the more they start copying also how the brains are segmented and how they, turn certain bits on and off, I mean, it's going to get closer.
But what you're saying is that the human brain is still the example for the AI, and maybe they can do certain things quicker, like a calculator. And the same is true for pen testing. Then,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Can you explain something that is really difficult in the craft of red teaming? That you really that's going to take a couple of years at least until we can even tell an AI to do it.
Doing things that aren't standard.
Yeah.
Because again, like
such as,
AI,
do you have an example maybe of something that you encountered?
Well, I mean, we're encountering things all day, every day, but it's just, I would say probably just maybe thinking laterally. Because really just, trying things that are completely unexpected, things that aren't completely textbook, perhaps intuition, following intuition.
Yeah, that's the thing is like for AI, is it like, it does not have intuition. It's like maybe brute forcing a lot of techniques and actually instruction that it has, but it does not have gut feeling or this kind of intuition and creativity. It does not have it yet.
It's statistically recreating what's already out there. And often, again, what's out there is very useful, but it's also limited. So, I mean, I think really where the humans do excel and will continue to excel is in doing the unexpected. And let's face it, hackers specialize in doing the unexpected.
Well, I think like an easy example could be, for example, when you do like a red teaming engagement, you have also like a part that involve OSINT, and OSINT you can maybe go in depth on a target on social media, trying to fit a stupid example like the name of the dog, and just maybe using in pattern for cracking password, like.
By OSINT, you mean you go to outside to the internet?
Open source intelligence. So you get extra data.
You see a vessel with a name on it, and you look at the Russian Facebook, and then you understand. This is this kind of forces that use this.
The guy loves the boat. The boat is called like this. Yeah. Maybe it's in the pattern of his password. I can create a dictionary that contains this kind of things. Like these things we don't have.
Just too many variables at the same time.
These are things that we're good at, like understanding also humans' nature and how we behave and get that pattern. I don't think that the AI is there.
Like, yeah, I mean,
for those in the audience who are worried, there is still a reason for you to exist. That's great.
Yeah. I think we're good at being irrational, and I think irrational is probably something we're better at than AIs might be good at.
Yeah. Until we can. We're getting into a philosophy lesson then maybe, but maybe that's also you're also able to simulate that kind of thing. Like you can simulate emotions. I mean, a computer also doesn't have that.
But look, I mean, I do think AI is going to be, applied considerably more. I mean, also even within radically open security. I mean, we've already been creating a kind of LLM pen test assistant to help with documentation and reporting. But the other thing you do need to consider is data governance. So the other thing also is that you need to run this stuff locally.
Of course.
Because, of course, there's absolutely no way we're going to be giving our vulnerabilities to Microsoft or,
no.
God forbid, Elon Musk or,
Well, it's a good thing that running an AI and having it answer questions is much easier than training it.
Yeah.
That's in your advantage then.
Yeah, but it's also expensive. I mean, also just trying to buy beefy enough hardware that you can do these in reasonable ways within reasonable amounts of time. It's an investment.
What we've been talking about about for the last couple of minutes is quality in outcomes for a customer. Huh? I mean, is it the brain? Is it an AI? Where is the where do you get the value? Is there a way to measure how good a pen test engagement is, or how good a pen tester is? Because I get so many questions of people who say, "Yeah, I don't know. I just pick one. I'll just put an RFP in the market, and then I'll based on talking about intuition, on the feeling, I select a pen testing company, and then I hope they do good. But it's all a matter of it's always a matter of who is the guy actually doing my work." Did he have too much to drink last night when he started did he get lucky? Is there a way to measure quality in that sense, in a more objective way?
Well, I think it's empirically impossible to measure how good a pen tester is, because, I mean, that would assume that you can basically say, oh, he found like N out of M vulnerabilities, but you never know what M is.
Yeah.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, so you can never, and anyway, I mean, pen tests are always time boxed. So anyway, even the best pen tester is never going to find everything. And anyway, that it's a statistical impossibility to do so, because there's roughly 16 bugs for every 1,000 lines of code. And if you count up the number of lines of code that we have,
then you get really depressed rather quickly. Yeah.
Of course, not to mention just the whole chain of dependencies. So the point really is just that we can try to look at things like how much did they find? Was it just things with low impact ratings? Did they not find anything?
But then again, I mean, if you've been through a couple of pen tests, or you have a small attack surface anyway, or it's a very simple application, then of course you will find less.
Of course.
And if it's really a long history and source code and all that. So the amount of things you find is never. So what do you say to a potential engagement person, someone who tries to hire you? Why? How do you measure this? And maybe in your own company, I mean, you know which people to put to what job. I mean, you have a feeling for quality.
Yes,
can't be otherwise.
Yeah, and even just trying to measure what people are good at is hard, because even if I take one of my more senior level pen testers, they have usually a very deep skill set and maybe one or two things. And then they have a shallow skill set and everything else. And if you were to take this senior level person and put them on a assignment where it's basically making use of the shallow side of their skill set,
they won't perform as
Precisely. So in that sense, I mean, even trying to assess the pen testers themselves is extremely difficult. This also, by the way, also ties in with more political things like how do you compensate people fairly? Also, when people are so good at different things, and then and of course some skill sets are far more rare than others. I mean, that you have a lot of web people, you have fewer hardware and embedded people, that kind of a thing. So, but in that sense, I mean, I really think what you need to do is just try and find an optimum between the skill sets that the people have and the skill sets that the assignments require. Oftentimes that requires a combination of people because, again, people will be like, T-shaped or M-shaped. So basically, you typically, to fill in the entire broad range of skill sets, you need multiple people working together.
It's impossible. The more you know in this field, the more you know that you need to know, and there's so many rabbit holes that you can get in, and it will be impossible.
So imagine then I have a web shop and I have an app for customers, and I want that to be pen tested. How do I start doing that? How do I select a company or a pen tester or a group of pen testers? What should I think about?
Yeah.
What should my requirements be, and how do I measure those? Is that
right? Well, I think that there's a couple factors that you need to look at. I mean, I think the first is just looking, if you can, at portfolio reports of a similar nature. If you're testing web apps, then by all means ask for portfolio reports of web apps that were pen tested by this other company, or better yet, by a wide range of companies. I think actually the best thing is that you work with multiple vendors. So you shouldn't just lock yourself in with one particular supplier, because anyways, there's going to be a wide range of, just different specialties in different companies, and it's always great to get many different eyes on the problems. So,
do you mean let's whenever there's a break launch, let's hire 3 different pen testers? Just don't tell them about each other, or maybe you can be open about it, but they work independently and deliver a report, all of them.
I mean, you could, but that's inefficient. Remember, this stuff costs money, right?
Yeah.
So it's more just that I think, oftentimes companies will have, like, let's say you have an annual pen test, right, on a particular system.
Yeah, the typical compliance thing. You need to do a pen test.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter to what. And it needs to be once a year. That's the one you mean.
Yes. Yeah, and you should just select one vendor for, the first year, another vendor for the second year, a third vendor for the other year. At a certain point, if you liked any of the parties, of course, you can always invite them to come back later. I mean, also particularly with other systems. But I think anyway, that's how you're going to be able to assess which company is doing the best job for you. Quite simply, just take the reports, hold them up next to one another.
The quality. And I think also, like, if you always have the same company, they get kind of sort of familiar with your network, with your environment, and in the end they might overlook something if it changes, so that's good to have an extra a fresh view, probably.
Yeah, we had a thread talk the other day with Tom, and he also said the more a pen tester knows about the environment, it doesn't make sense to do a black box test. I mean, you want to give them as much as possible information, not because you want to make it easy for them, but you might want them to reach the most possible vulnerabilities that they can, and therefore, if they have an informed decision, instead of paying them for 3 years to gather intelligence about your environment, just give it to them, and then because you got to assume that your attacker has that anyway. That's what you're referring to. Yeah, you mentioned one thing, and the last thing I'd like to talk about a little bit more in depth is about the scale of things. You mentioned, these things cost money indeed, and there is a shortage of this mind. So in the minds of many people, these AIs are really great because we don't have to employ them. We will rent some kind of AI cloud, and at least that we can put computers in there and chips, and they work over and over again, and they work 24/7. So isn't that a good point as well? I mean, wouldn't it be good to continuously have some kind of system scan?
Of course, absolutely. I mean, and certainly integrating this kind of scanning into your CI/CD pipelines, we tend to call this DevSecOps, is a really wonderful idea. I mean, if you have the time and the capacity and the budget to be able to set up these systems, by all means, I mean, you should. It has value.
Yeah, if you think about the pipeline, I mean, if you do a pen test, you have a snapshot in time, and the code, how many times per day gets updated, how many times per day you have different code, so that can help a lot.
Precisely. Yeah. And just continuous unit testing to make sure you don't get regressions. I mean, super valuable.
Yeah. And so putting it into the CI/CD pipeline, what you mean is I built a component of it could be an API that handles payments or whatever it is. And every time there's a new version, or you should probably rerun the pipeline every day anyway, because there's always vulnerabilities that are automatically patched in. Huh?
Yeah.
What you're saying is every time before you roll it out, so after building, what you're doing, you get some kind of AI pen test that looks at the source code or the fuzzing, or what kind of things are valuable then, you think?
Yeah. Not just every version, by the way, every new commit.
So, yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
So, but I mean, there's all kinds of things indeed you can do. I mean, running vulnerability scanning tools, indeed writing, static or dynamic code analysis tools. I mean, I think there's a wide variety of things that are out there. So,
okay.
I think that not necessarily one exclude the other when we talk about automated pen test and manual pen test, because automated pen test can help you over time, being always on top of things, but does not think out of the box, can't go really in depth. So then done it together with manual assessment, maybe once or twice a year, then that you have the added value, in my opinion.
Yes.
You have looked at lots of dynamic automated AI kind of pen tests, and we don't have to go into the details of specific vendors or anything. But is there anything that stands out that is of value that you get out of these tools?
I think that's what we were mentioning before. That's what stands out. The thing is, So with the new networks, you have like we're talking about the cloud. It's really like dynamic. You can just spawn new machine, and then you don't use them anymore. They're not there. Then AI, that's good at that. It detects that. You can do it over time. While a pen test is just at that moment what you had in your environment. So I think that's what stands out a little bit.
Is it more than vulnerability scanning? Like this is an old version of SSH or those?
Well, it depends which tools are you using, because like if it's a vulnerability scanning, simple vulnerability scanning, I would assume that does not have like a machine learning or just an AI model. There are some like tools that I tested that had AI included, so it should be able to determine which path are the best to take based on previous assessment. These kind of things, test all sort of things. The problem that I found is also that what you mentioned before about having open source or black box.
Mm-hmm.
This is black box. So, okay, it did not find anything, but why? So I can't see what are the answer that it got from what it tested. So how am I going to make sure that actually it is correct? So, and then in that specific case, I tested manually. And indeed, I could find stuff that it did not find, but I don't know what it tried. I don't know what were the answer that it got because, I don't have access to the report or the code.
But if I buy a pen test from either of you, then I also don't know what you've been doing. To me, you're the same black box.
No, not from radically open security. Remember, radically open, open. You do know exactly what we're doing. So this is actually another, I would say...
I might not understand. That's mainly my point. I can ask you what you did exactly and why, and I'm sure you can make a whole list.
Radically is about the open. So
the radically is about the open. Yeah, definitely. So, because look, one of the things I hadn't mentioned yet is that one of our core principles at Radically Open Security is basically what we call teach to fish, right? So, and what this means in practice is that our actual pen testing workflow, we have a methodology that we call peek over our shoulder. And what this means is we actually invite customers into our online chat rooms. So we use a solution that's called Rocket Chat. It's basically an open source self-hosted clone of Slack. And we actually invite the customers into our chat rooms so they can actually observe us and interact with us dynamically while we are busy breaking their stuff. And really what we're attempting to do here is to optimize for knowledge transfer and transmission of the hacker mindset. Just because, if they actually understand step by step what we're doing, then it will, again, if they have the mindset and can integrate it, it will prevent them from making the same mistakes the next time.
Yeah, okay. So then it becomes a learning exercise. But it assumes that your customer actually understands what you're doing, or at least to a certain extent.
Well, they won't completely understand what we're doing. That's why they're hiring us in.
Exactly.
But that's okay. I mean, look, you can't obviously learn how to be a hacker in the course of a 1-week engagement. That would be impossible. But that's not entirely what it is. At least what we're attempting to do first is just at least to convey the basics and a little bit about what it is. Again, the mindset of what we're doing. And on top of that, we're trying to spark interest. We're trying to spark curiosity so they can at least have a few sort of hooks into it that later on, if they're interested in their own time, they can continue with pursuing.
Sounds more effective than user training.
It's a bit of a combination. It's a bit of a combination between pen testing and user training. Yeah. We also have another method of pen testing that we sometimes do we call red-blue pen testing. And basically what this is we take a group of, let's say, for example, a dozen developers, sysadmins, DevOps folks from a particular company. We'll divide them up basically into typically either a red team and a blue team or a red team and a red team. And then what we'll do is under the guidance of one of our senior pen testers for each team, we will have them literally compete against each other to hack their own stuff.
That's a really cool idea, actually. That's really fun. That's nice.
Yeah.
So it's not like purple teaming exercise. It's like the step. That's really nice. I like it.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Yeah.
I wonder what Luca is going to propose to me tomorrow morning.
No, but I think it's really interesting. Like it's really nice. It's a really good approach. Really, I like it a lot.
It's super fun and the thing is, the actual developers themselves have the context.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because we're coming in, as third
Mhm.
parties, and for us, there's a learning curve with any new code base. But with the developers,
It will also guide you much quicker to there where the pressure points that you need to find, right?
Precisely. That too.
Becoming much more efficient. Yeah. Okay. Well, a lot of good insights. And to come back to my initial question or statement, AIs are going to take over pentesting. Although what some companies may want to make us believe, I think your common opinion is at least not now.
Yeah,
We
no,
kind of need
no.
the human brain and the creativity and the intuition.
Yeah.
But it can help you. Is that fair to say? It's a tool that you use and that everybody should probably
Of course.
use because it's out there.
And that's already being used. I mean, also, if you just consider other things like the creation of phishing pretexts and spam mails, I mean, there's already so much that's being deployed.
Attackers use it, so we should
Yeah.
do the same. So the bad actors use it, we should do the same.
Yeah.
And I really believe that it's like an enhancement on human capabilities, and you should use it.
Yeah, and
You
the
really
days
have
and the days that you can distinguish that you yourself can distinguish a spam mail from an actual mail are gone, right? It's impossible for a human now to do so anymore because they get so well crafted. Yeah, yeah. The amount of emails I get from colleagues that never send them to me, we're very convincing, appealing. Yeah, you need the answer here is making sure that your procedures are in order. Huh? Make sure that you do not transfer money because you got an email from your CFO, for example. That happens.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you both for all these insights. I enjoyed talking to you guys. If that's the same for you, please like this video and while you're there, subscribe to the channel as well. It allows us to spread the word further and have others also benefit from the information that you learned today. We'd really appreciate it. It also helps us. And here from headquarters at Onto It, I thank you very much for tuning in. Next Tuesday, there will be a next one. So I hope to see you there as well. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to Threat Talks, a podcast by Onto It Cybersecurity and AMS-IX. Did you like what you heard? Do you want to learn more? Follow Threat Talks to stay up to date on the topic of cybersecurity.